We're very close to an election now. Still, the hot favourite is a hung parliament, such as we saw in 2010. At the end of that hung parliament, we saw a big swing against Labor, more than 4%, and a swing against the Greens, primary vote, more than 3%, so a quarter of your voters. I know you say you won't do a formal deal, but what else would you do differently this time around to avoid that backlash?
Of course, here in Melbourne, more people voted for the Greens and our vote went up, and we're in that position of having that arrangement with Labor. And of course, what we managed to secure during that was getting dental into Medicare for kids, getting that price on pollution that saw Australia's pollution start to fall, and getting $13 billion for clean and renewable energy. Now, this time around, we've said very clearly that with the experts predicting that we are headed towards a minority parliament, that our position will be very clear. Keep Peter Dutton out and get Labor to act. Get Labor to act by making big corporations pay their fair share of tax, getting dental and mental health into Medicare, wiping student debt, making it so you can see the GP for free, and taking real climate action. Now, as to what kind of approach we take, whether it's the same as last time, whether it's different, we've got an open mind on that, Tom. We've got an open mind. Really, the priorities would be having effective, stable and progressive government.
But surely 2013, when you lose a quarter of your voters at a nationwide level, was a repudiation to some level of the Greens. That wasn't a positive result, was it?
Well, I'd say two things. One is that, again, here in Melbourne, where we were in that position and instrumental in that position of there being a minority parliament, people looked at what the Greens had delivered and our vote increased. And that was, of course, a reflection, I think, of getting dental into Medicare for kids and those other things that said. Well, but it was obviously very important in the scheme of what happened during the course of that parliament. But secondly, I think we're in a time now, Tom, where less than a third of the country votes for the government, and a bit more than a third of the country votes for the opposition, and about a third votes for someone else. And you see at the moment, notwithstanding what you've said about history 2010, 2013, we've now got a bigger crossbench than we've ever had, and you've got more people turning to third voices. And I think people understand, Tom, that we can't keep voting for the same two parties and expecting a different result. And I think now, with a third of the country saying we want the Greens or someone else, I think you're going to see that reflected at the election.
The biggest crossbench presence is the so-called teal independent MPs. Should they reveal at least who they would lean towards in a hung parliament at some stage before the actual polling day?
Look, it's going to be up to them to do that. We want to make it very clear to voters where we stand. We'll keep Peter Dutton out, and we will get Labor to act on cost of living, on housing, on the climate and environment crisis that we're facing. We've made our position very clear because we think that people are entitled to know that. I'll leave that up to others, but I think what people know is
But don't you have a view on whether or not they should?
Probably.
If you're going to grow the crossbench and have people voting effectively for a hung parliament, shouldn't they have an idea of the flavour of it?
Well, I think that's something that obviously the public and voters will have in their mind, and we've taken the view that we want to let people know what position that we'll take. And as I say, in a context where experts are predicting that is what is likely to happen, we think it's a once-in-a-generation chance, Tom, to make some real change on housing, to make some real change on taxing the big corporations, on climate and on the environment, and on some of those healthcare measures that we've led on, like being able to see the GP for free, that now Labor and it seems the Liberals say they adopt as well. So there's I actually think this time around, looking at it now, there's a huge appetite from the Australian public to say we want more voices there. Now, of course, I think that puts an obligation on us when we're there to say, well, there's got to be higher degrees of cooperation. Everyone might not be able to get everything they want, but we're going to push, and history shows we can get somewhere.
Greens leader Adam Bandt, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Tom.